Let's see how we can navigate the Linux file system. So the first command we're going to talk about is pwd, which is short for print working directory. With this, we can see where we are in the file system. So a / represents the root directory. Now to see the files and directories here, we type ls, which is short for list. So we have bin, which we talked about earlier, that is short for binaries. This is where we have binary files and programs. We have dev, which includes files for devices. We have boot, which includes boot files, etc, which includes configuration files, and so on. Now, by default, ls lists these items on multiple lines. If you don't like this layout and want to show one item per line, you need to pass an option, that is -1. You might prefer this layout. We have another option, -l, for seeing a long listing. This listing includes more details. So in the first column, we have the permissions of this file or directory. The first time you see this, it might look really scary, but trust me, it's easier than you think. We'll talk about that later in this section. Over here, you can see the user that owns this file or directory. We can see the size, we can see the date, and so on. Now, to change the current directory, we use the cd command. We have the same command in Windows. Now here we can type a relative or an absolute path. A relative path is relative to where we are. So in this root directory, we have directories like bin, boot, and so on. So this is a relative path. Now, in contrast, an absolute path always starts from the root directory. So let's go to a directory starting with E. Now we can press tab to get auto completion. Beautiful. Now let's go to a directory starting with A. Now if you press tab, nothing happens because we have multiple directories starting with A. So we have to press tab one more time. Great. So we have 3 entries, 3 directories, adduser.conf, alternatives, and apt. So let's type the second letter, P, and then press tab. Beautiful. Now let's see what we have in this directory. So these blue items are directories, and sources.list is a file. Now to get out of this directory, we can go one level up by typing 2 periods. Again, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this, but I want to cover it to make this section comprehensive. So we can go one level up to get to the etc directory, or 2 levels up to get to the root directory. Look, we're currently in the root directory. Now, when using ls, we can optionally specify a path. Let's say I'm somewhere in the file system, but I want to look at the content of another directory. I don't want to navigate to that directory. So I'm currently in the root directory. I want to know what files and directories we have inside the bin directory. So once again, we can type a relative path or an absolute path starting from the root directory. So here are the binaries in this directory. Look at pwd. That's the command that we just executed. So pwd is a program in this directory. Here's another example. Look at echo. So most of the commands we have been exploring so far are programs or binaries in the bin directory, okay? Now let me show you a shortcut. Earlier I told you that here we have this home directory where each user has a home directory, but the root user has a special home directory called root. Now to get here, there are 2 options. We can type an absolute or relative path and go to root, but there is a shortcut. So let me get out of this directory. So I'm currently in the root directory. To get to my home directory, I can type a tilde, and this applies to all users, not just the root user. Whenever we type cd tilde, we go to our home directory. Now, right now, there is nothing here, but in the next lesson, I will show you how to create some files in this directory. So before moving on to the next lesson, I want you to spend a couple of minutes and play with the commands we explored in this lesson. Navigate the file system, get adventurous, see what you can discover. I'll see you in the next lesson.